Are you ready?
Yes, I am
Are
ready.
you ready, Freddy?
Oh! She said the thing.
She said the thing.
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid. See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Well, welcome, everyone. So many fireworks, so many things, so many electronics. Oh my God! Today we're talking about the 2023 supernatural horror film Five Nights at Freddy's. I just have to say for the 5 stars, please.
Oh yes, no, I understood.
Okay, great.
And
I'm
actually,
glad.
for those of you who are keeping track at home, welcome to season 6 of Talking Horror.
Oh my gosh.
Seasons mean nothing. We just do them.
666.
Season
Uh-oh.
666. Seasons mean nothing because they're just for me to stay organized. We still release episodes a lot. So thanks for joining us on our journey through these horror movies. I believe this is our 123rd episode that we've done.
Ooh. Okay. I thought you were going to say 126 for the 6th season. That
I'm
would've
so
been
sorry to
fun.
disappoint you. That is not the case.
Well, we're excited that you are here joining us for season 6. But also, Brian, I know it's not the end of the year yet, but I just want to shout out that we had some pretty good viewage and listening during this year. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Yeah,
I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it's perfectly okay. We had some amazing numbers this year, both from Apple Podcasts as well as the Spotify Wrapped. We are all over the world with listeners. We are a very high percent of a lot of people's favorite podcast. We have some really, really, really great feedback from all of you that we're going to try to apply. We're just we were ranked very high throughout the year. It fluctuates obviously, but on the Apple podcast list of film review podcasts, we broke the 100 top 100 for a while. It's very exciting stuff. So thank you so much for all of your listening, all of your responding to us, whether it's on YouTube or social media. We really appreciate that. We appreciate all of your reviews. They really do help us. There's a lot of horror podcasts out there. So I just want to really, really thank you for spending time with us. We really, really appreciate it. And if this is your first time listening, thanks for tuning in. You can find us wherever you get podcasts. So if you're listening to us, find us on YouTube. If you're finding us on YouTube, hi YouTube. And you just wanted to listen to us in the car or on your commute or while you're, doing the dishes or laundry or whatever it is, you can absolutely find us on like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So just a huge thank you. And then of course on social media at Talk Horror Pod. We cover a lot more movies on Instagram and TikTok than we do on the podcast. I'll be completely honest with you. At this point in the year, drum roll please, I have seen 44 horror films that came out this year. And if you're watching on YouTube, here is my list of movies I still need to watch before the end of the year episode. So we're putting our work in, but we talk about them on other social media stuff. So like definitely check us out there.
That's so funny. Jamie, do you have any clue where you are as far as that number? If you guys don't know, Jamie and Brian are married and they live together. But Jamie, are
What?
you are you pushing 40s too in the movie area or no?
I don't think I'm at 40s. I definitely know that Brian's watched a lot of horror movies that I did not because I gave him permission to watch them
Right.
without me.
Okay.
But yeah, I have to I'm assuming my letterboxd is mostly up to date, although upon looking at it, perhaps a few movies behind. But I'll just
Okay.
catch up with Brian's letterboxd, who puts the reviews in immediately upon finishing a film.
You gotta do it while it's hot, fresh on your
Yeah.
mind, you know?
BP527 on Letterboxd.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about why you all are here. The Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Let's get into it. So, this movie was directed by Emma Tammy and is based off the video game series of the same name by Scott Cawthon, and it stars Josh Henderson with Elizabeth Lail.
Hutcherson?
Wait, did you say Henderson?
Henderson? Hutcherson. PETA.
I did.
PETA Malak.
Oh my god.
It is PETA.
I once walked into him on the
PETA?
street in New York.
Wait,
No
really?
way.
On the east side, on the Midtown East, he was outside of a bar smoking a cigarette, and I saw him and I brushed against him, not on purpose. I was just drunk, and so I guess like I'm not a reliable narrator, but I have other people who like confirmed the sighting. That's it. That's all I got.
I'm obsessed with this. I'm also obsessed with the fact that
Exciting.
you guys are making me realize that it is PETA because I didn't. I was
Wait,
like, I know
really?
this. Well, I was like, I know this actor, but I don't know where. And I just was not thinking about Hunger Games at all. I was just
Sure.
like, horror movies. Yeah. Hutcherson.
Yeah.
I said Henderson. Damn.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Hutcherson with Elizabeth Lail, which also I was like, how do I know her? And then
Yeah.
it's from the first season of You from Netflix. Cause I was like, why do
Oh.
I have a little bit of disdain and sadness for this person? And it's because of the first season. Oy, what a season of a show if you have not watched You on Netflix.
Have not.
Oh, yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it to yourself.
Great,
And lastly, starring Piper Rubio, Mary Stuart Masterson, and of course, the one and only Scream King Matthew Lillard. So obviously heavy spoilers and for this, and probably going to talk about some of the video series because I didn't realize there's 80 million games in Five Nights at Freddy's. So I will be asking all the questions if you guys know. Hopefully you do, because I really want to know about the lore of all of this.
Sure.
So, Jamie, give us those trigger warnings, please.
This movie is about murdering children.
My
so
God.
If you don't like the sound of that, steer clear because that is a central plot. You might think it's about animatronics, which it is, but it's also about murdered children.
Yeah.
So there's that. Yeah. I mean, it's also about kidnapping children.
Yeah.
Social services are thematic in this. Meddling families.
Meddling kids.
Yeah.
I mean, he is Shaggy.
Yeah,
He
that's
is
true.
Shaggy. Perfect casting.
And there's definitely a few moments of insides on the outside, some pretty gruesome kills. And also, again, this movie has animatronics. So if like that puppet were not shout out, but trigger warning for those afraid of puppets like I am, then
We could
this-
also
this
shout
might
them
be-
out.
Shout out the folks who are fearful of puppets. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Shout
Yes.
out to myself because puppets are scary and disturbing.
Oh.
Did I miss
Is that-
anything?
I don't think so.
Insides,
No,
outside?
dreams, like
Nightmares.
sleep medication. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nightmares,
that's-
murders.
Sure.
Just mostly about the murdering children.
Reference to suicide.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, that's
Um,
yeah. Interesting. Not
Yeah.
that that's interesting, but it's like very elusively
Yeah,
referenced.
Right. Okay, well, if that is that, Brian, you've already given us all of our wonderful words. So, have you guys seen any other horror movies this week?
Yeah,
Anything to talk about?
we watched
Oh yeah,
two.
we did.
Ooh,
I forgot.
Um, the first one we watched, it's not really a horror movie per se. So actually, technically, I may have only seen 43 movies, depending on if you count this as a horror movie or not.
uh
I probably wouldn't at this point, but we watched A Haunting in Venice, the new
oh.
like Kenneth Branagh, Agatha Christie Poirot movie adaptation. Totally fun. I think it's the best of the three between
Okay.
the Murder on the Orient Express remake, Death of the Nile, and then this. I enjoyed it. Jamie and I like watching them. We love like trying to guess who it is because I didn't know this story, so it was brand new to me.
Mm.
The acting, everyone's chewing the scenery. It's delicious a lot. I mean, I also, as you know, if you've watched this or listened to this podcast, I love Venice. I collect masks. So I really liked the tone. I really liked the atmosphere. It was a good time, and I felt like it never overstayed its welcome. It was on Hulu.
Nice.
Jamie,
Mhm.
do you agree? Did you like it less than I did?
I think I liked it less than you did, but it was fine. Uh, yeah, like it. I feel like the the previews made it seem like it would be more horror-y than it actually was.
Mm-hmm.
So like a
Yeah,
little
more
bit
horror-y.
misleading.
Maury, yes.
Maury.
Morror. That's what we call it,
Morror.
morror.
That's
Yeah.
Morror.
Well,
Yeah.
we're gonna talk a lot about morror in this episode. I'm
Oh
pretty
my
sure.
God.
But yeah, I thought that it would be more, but then at the same time I was like, no, because that's not really what these are. So it's like, where are they going to meet in the middle between
Sure.
what the previews are presenting this to be and what it actually is going to be? I feel like they really amp up a lot of the horror elements in the previews, and it's a detective thriller. It's a whodunit. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna take
Okay.
it off my horror list. You're right.
I'm sorry.
Ha.
No, like I took Missing off the list. I took Sisu off the list. It doesn't
Mhm.
belong on there.
I mean, I will say that other horror podcasts I listened to covered all of those.
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
it's horror adjacent enough. I just feel like they set the wrong expectations going into that movie.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm gonna
But
take it
again,
off
like
the
horror is a pretty
Wide. Yeah.
Yeah.
wide and like kind of subjective
list. Totally.
genre. So I
Absolutely.
feel like some people might still consider it to be horror.
Yeah. Totally
Yeah.
agree. And then we also finally watched Malum, which is the remake of Last Shift. So we did an episode, if you remember, not you two, I know you remember, but listeners, on Last Shift, which we all really enjoyed to different extents. And we watched Malum, which is the remake. For those of you who don't know, Malum essentially, like, it's the same story, but it adds a lot more to it, and it changes some of the plot twists and turns and stuff like that.
Oh.
But Jamie, what did you think of Malum?
It was bad. It was
Yeah.
not
Oh,
good.
no.
Which is surprising for being a mostly like, very similar story and like not shot for shot remake, because that's like a pet peeve of mine. But like there was a lot. There was a lot of things that they added and things that they removed, quite frankly. And that's what I feel like made it a worse movie. The scares in the OG one are that movie really scared me like deeply, and this one was boring. And even though I knew what this one was about because I saw Last Shift, it just didn't deliver for having a bigger budget and having access to more resources. I was like, why is this worse?
Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Disappointed.
felt like, really disappointing. It weirdly felt like it had less of a budget, or like it felt even more like, I don't know what it was about it, but like it removed some of my favorite things that made the first one good, but not in a way that kind of enhanced this. I personally thought that all the added backstory and exposition bogged the movie down a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
It
also
took away from like the impact that any of the scares had.
Yeah, totally. And it wasn't scary at all. And it's and truly also I was not the practical effects most of the time felt like they looked fake. Like I can't even explain it.
Yeah,
Um
they showed way too much.
Okay.
Where like in the original one, it's a super dark movie, so you can't really
Yes.
see everything. And so like the scary monster type things, like you're only seeing for brief periods of time. This one, like you are staring at them in the face for extended periods of time. And the more you
yeah.
look at it, you're like, this looks stupid. Like
Oh
Yeah.
stop
no.
showing this to me. It doesn't look scary. It looks dumb.
Right.
I would
So like that was a mistake.
Yeah, I would also argue that people are less peoply in this movie. I had a lot
Yeah.
of gripes with the way they handled the fact that like she's the daughter of a police officer. It's like, "Oh, you're his daughter?" It's like, "This is not how police officers work. If you're the daughter of a former police officer doing your first shift, everybody knows that you're there." Like
Yeah.
even
It's so
if
weird.
even if the father is like no one liked him, like it doesn't everyone's like, "Oh, you're that person's kid." It's like, no, everyone knows that this is her. Like it was just I had a hard time buying into it. Like there were some things that really popped that I did like about it, that were different. Like I thought there's like the cult is still active in the town. Like
Yeah.
I thought that was a super cool interesting thing that like only half goes somewhere. Anyway, this is not a Malum episode. This is a Five Nights at Freddy's episode. But yeah, Jamie and I were equally disappointed. And every time we like paused it to go to the bathroom, we like, that first time you're watching a movie with someone at home and you don't want to ruin the other person's experience by being like, I hate this. Because then the other
Yeah.
person like feels bad that they're kind of making you watch this along with them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But like,
Yes.
so there was that like moment we looked at each other like, we both think this is boring and bad, right? And we were like, yeah, we're like, oh, okay. And then you can kind of
Right.
enjoy the rest of it. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. No, that's true. Instead of feeling like you said, like you're making somebody watch something. So I
Yeah,
get
because
that.
it's a different experience than if I've seen something before and know it's good or bad. And then like those are
Right.
two very different watch experiences.
Right. Ugh. Okay. Well, let's talk about this watch experience. We need a plot summary, please, of Five Nights at Freddy's.
What's the plot?
Producer Brian, are you ready?
Yes, I am
Are
ready.
you ready, Freddy?
Oh! She said the thing.
She said the thing.
Obsessed.
All right, producer Brian, I've got 2 minutes on the clock for you to give us your best plot summary. You ready?
No, but let's do it.
All right, ready, steady, go.
Okay, Five Nights at Freddy's opens with a security guard being killed. Freddy Fazbear, something. I don't know this a lot very well. But there's a Chuck E. Cheese like thing called Freddy's that has been abandoned, and we have this mall security guard named Mike Schmidt, played by Josh Henderson or Josh Hutcherson, whichever one you prefer. Anyway, we find out that when he was a kid, he was supposed to be watching his little brother. His little brother was abducted, and then it basically ruined his family. His parents died, and he was given basically charge of his younger sister, who was born after the fact. He's struggling, can't keep a job. He has this hero complex where he needs to save kids or figure out, while he's trying to figure out what happened to his little brother. He gets this job at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and weird things are happening. At the same time, his aunt is trying, who's like only wants the checks from the government, is trying to get custody of his sister, essentially. His babysitter that he hires to take care of his sister while he's working is being paid by the aunt to kind of ruin everything and make him lose his job so she can get custody. Anyway, all the things come to life because we find out that they're actually the spirits of children that were murdered by the owner of Freddy Fazbear. It is revealed to be, I don't remember his name, but it's like a whole lore that I don't understand. It's Matthew Lillard. Matthew Lillard is actually his like his job counselor or whatever they call it. He makes friends with the police officer who's the daughter of him. And wow, I really botched this completely. And then
It's all good.
he brings his sister to work. He has to save the sister because the animatronics end up turning on them. But in the end, everything works out. The animatronics like find out that that he killed them, and they take him, and they leave everything. And it's actually a little bit more streamlined in the movie. I made it very convoluted the way I was telling it because I told it out of order. But he ends up they kill everyone. There's a lot of YouTube stars in it, and then and there's probably going to be another one because it made a ton of money.
Really? Okay, I'm interested.
Gross. I really botched that. I'm really sorry, listeners. Just go to this website called www.wikipedia.org and just read the plot summary. That was not good. That was not good.
And that's the plot.
It's all good. You only have 2 minutes to tell this, and I will go ahead as we start our section of likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
I will say, producer Brian, that even you trying to tell it in 2 minutes, it is a lot, and it can be confusing if you don't already know what it is generally about. Because like Jamie mentioned earlier, it's general gist. Because like Jamie said earlier, you think it's just about animatronics, but it's about murdered children. And that was one of my first questions when I finished watching the movie, was if the children were a part of the lore. And then I found out that they were, because it, in that moment in the movie, seemed like a lot. So anyway, I'll start off with my likes and gripes. Yes,
Question first. A lot in terms of convoluted, or a lot in terms of, like the death of children is just like a lot. You didn't expect it to be so like children death heavy.
I think the former.
Okay.
Yes. And it felt like hat on top of hat on top of hat. But I'll get into like a little bit specifics of why I feel that way. I'll say what I like first about it. And what I've now realized, a new like in general for Nikisha in movies. Oh my
God, I'm so excited. Ooh. What is it?
It's such a simple concept, but I just like when a movie takes you immediately into the world. So when like the Universal sign is going through the globe for just the Universal like studios, and it's glitching like the little screens on the security thing. It's like, I like that. Put me in the world immediately. Like I want to go there. I want to be in the mood, in the moment. And so I just like that was a thing. And I just want to be where the people are, like Errol said. So allow me that. I also like, and it was twofold. I liked how the movie felt like it was still kind of in the 80s with like the old telephones and like the mall. But then I was like, oh, wait, but is it like in the 90s? Because at the very end, when the taxi is coming in, it's playing Brandy's I Want to Be Down. And that's like an absolute staple of the 90s. So I'm like, is this just a movie like that, like the Freddy's Fazbear Pizzeria, whatever, was in the 80s, but like this is taking place in the 90s? I don't know. It just felt that way. If it's not that, I just really enjoyed how, because this was an old Chuck E. Cheese style type pizza restaurant, that everything else in the movie was still in that same tone, if that makes sense. Just like with the clothes and stuff, because it was just like old phones, old cell phones, like it looked like one of the it looked like the babysitter had like a form of a Nokia cell phone.
Well, let's think this through. The 80s is when this was like super popular, Freddy's.
Yeah.
Right? I don't remember if they say how old Mike is in the movie, but we can assume he's late 20s, early 30s as a character, maybe. So let's say, and how old was he when his brother was kidnapped? Like 8, 10,
No,
maybe.
like 12
Yeah, I
maybe?
All
heard
right.
the year 12 somewhere in there.
All right.
Mhm.
So let's
Yeah.
say he was 12. Let's just say he was 12 for the heck of it. If
Hmm.
he's 12 years old, and it was unclear if he was kidnapped in like the early 90s or like the late 80s. So let's for the heck of it, let's say he was kidnapped in 1990 for math purposes. So if he
Mm.
was 12, and let's give it the benefit of the doubt that, like, he's like what, 30, like, maybe just like as for the heck of it. So like, what's like 20-ish years? So 90 to 2000, 2000. So like, this technically is supposed to take place like in the 2010s at the earliest, like between 2000 and 2010. So like,
Yeah.
that's kind of when that would potentially happen. Obviously, like, those numbers are rough, and like, I may be missing a piece of information that was given to us in the movie, but like,
Mm.
yeah, for a Nokia phone, that seems about right, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had a Nokia in like 2004,
Oh, you
2005.
did? I didn't have
Whoa.
one.
I
I
don't know if that's
did.
great or not, but
I
I'm going to
know.
react to it.
I was an only child, so they needed to keep track of me, so I had a little Nokia. uh but yeah, I just liked that the tone was the same. It just all felt like it was within the same theme of
Hmm.
everything. So I just appreciated that. Also, Matthew Lillard is still hot to this day, and that just is going to be a like for me forever and a day in whatever movie he is ever in that we cover on here. Of course, the animatronics are great. I was just so surprised at how it looked, because you can tell that it wasn't CGI, but it was so
Mhm.
well done that sometimes I was just like, oh my God, yeah, this is not CGI. Just how they did it was just so fantastic.
Yeah. And let me add to that.
Mhm.
The animatronics and the costumes and everything in Five Nights at Freddy's is exceptional, and it really elevates this movie, whether you like this movie or not. To me, the animatronics like elevate this movie to an nth degree. This movie would potentially be border, even if you like the narrative, I'm not saying I did or didn't, but like,
Mm.
this movie would be borderline unwatchable if everything was CG for me,
Yeah.
because I'm a proponent that the opening scene in the movie, loses me the second it flips to the CGI. CGI in horror
Mm.
movies, unless it's perfect or in the dark, do not work for me. And this movie makes the choice to show the animatronics early and often in bright lights, and it pays off in spades. I would see a million more of these movies just for the animatronics.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's what kind of was holding me on. Um and I think that's the going to be the main like, and that's
Mhm.
all the likes that I really have for this. My gripes come from well, my gripes come just from questions. Like, one question I have, well, first off, I have you guys played the game at all?
I
No.
Either
have
of you?
not, but I have watched, I do dabble in Let's Plays, which are basically
Right.
videos of people who are playing games because, like, either I didn't have access to that game, or I wanted to see it to see if I liked it enough to buy it, or
Mhm.
I genuinely liked the person who was like playing the game. So like some
Sure.
popular streamers or like Let's Players that people would know that played Five Nights at Freddy's games are Markiplier and Jacksepticeye. There's
Okay.
other one, Corey Kenshin's another one. There's like a ton of them, but those were like the ones that I watched like when these games had first come out.
Okay, so with that information, and I've only seen a few TikToks of people playing the game, which I still
Mm-hmm.
don't fully like understand, like the exact gameplay of it all. But is there kind of gameplay in this movie? And if so, like, do you feel like it was accurate?
Yeah, there was definitely things that happen in the movie that like relate to the gameplay. So like
Okay.
for those that don't know the game at all, essentially the like at least the original game or games, because it's like you said, there's many installments now, and I haven't watched a lot of the later ones and things like that. But originally, you're in one place, so you're playing as like the new security guard at this old abandoned pizzeria that was once super successful, and you're in one room. And you have control over looking at the security feed and switching between different cameras to like, see if anybody's coming. You also have the ability to lock both doors on each side of you. But doing all of this uses a battery. So you have like a limited amount of like battery or electricity that you can use. And the more that you're like opening and closing the doors and looking at the video feeds, the faster your battery runs out. So the goal of the game is to last through, and you can see like a time, like a clock. And so you're the night shift. So you're starting at midnight and you're trying to last till 6 a.m. I think. Okay. And so basically you want to survive and make it to 6 a.m. of the shift. I think it's 5 days in a row, which is why it's called Five Nights at Freddy's. Yes. And without being captured, essentially murdered by the animatronic. So like if you see them coming, you kind of close the door in time before one of them gets you. And so you're kind of like operating between all of these mechanisms and hoping that the battery lasts until 6 a.m. And then it restarts again, but it like gets more difficult. So like the difficulty goes up each night that you're there, which I think also kind of relates to the experiences that our protagonist is happening. Like the things that are happening are like escalating each night that he's there. Right. And I think that kind of aligns with like the original game where it continues to get harder and more dangerous the more nights that he's there.
And did anybody actually count if it was 5 nights in this movie? I'm assuming it was, but I didn't actually count. Right.
Yeah, and I think it is because, oh man, I think I was paying attention to that and then I stopped after a while. But I do think it actually is 5 nights.
Yeah. I think I would say the same too. But you know what now brings up a gripe is, we love like a time frame and we love a countdown. And I kind of was expecting there to be like night 1, this, and then like night 2, blah,
which is
blah,
what
blah.
happens in the game. And I wonder if like maybe that was a part of it and then they eliminated that for whatever reason. But like, I would imagine that like that's something that people would be looking for, whether they both are fans of the game or not, just to kind of keep track of like, all right, you told me that there would be a time frame, so like,
yeah. I think if you were to do that in this movie, there would have to be a reason they only hired him for 5 nights. You know what I mean? Because the point of this is that he wanted to keep his job for as long as possible because he wants to like pay for his life and make sure that he retains his sister. So in counting each night that he's there, unless there was a reason for it, to me kind of undercuts the narrative. So it's sacrilege to say this because we love a countdown, but like it in the context of this movie, it wouldn't make sense. I think it would undercut or distract from the character's like main objective. However, like in the game, like, yeah, definitely, like, give me those 5 nights, baby.
But also to counter, Brian,
please,
they could have put in, we've had a lot of security guards, but none of them last past 5 days. We don't know what the deal is. And then you can start a countdown from there.
Great.
Of like,
you solved.
Is he going to last? You know what I mean?
I love it.
Fantastic.
Problem fixed immediately.
Problem fixed. Because they already say there's been a lot of different security guards and we can't keep people on this job. Add in the 5 days you're there.
Great.
So just a few little other gripes, and then I'm just going to say like the big gripe of the whole for me.
Yeah.
I had a really big gripe with Matthew Lillard at first. Like, he's a career counselor, right? That's what it says on his little like tab. And then he's like going through, what is his name? Mike's file or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, who do you think you are? Mike. And he doesn't say his last name. And he's like, oh, and then like has a realization, and then like whatever happens. But it's like, as a career counselor, would you not have read his file like before talking to this person? Like, are you that busy? Like, why would you be like in that moment meeting with this person? Like you set an appointment.
Career counselor.
Yes. And this is before we know like what we know. But in that moment, it was like, you're not a great career counselor.
Also, that moment just like phones in that he's gonna be the reveal at the end.
Yeah. It's also what we talked
called.
Huh?
Early.
What?
I think I've really been priding myself on figuring out like the whodunit of it all lately, and I'm pretty sure I said that because I also was like, he's the only other famous person in this movie.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
The only other character in this movie.
Yeah, that also is true. I mean, it wouldn't have made sense to be the police officer. So.
No.
Right.
Or the aunt. Like it does. Like
yeah. I mean, we already knew she was bad, so it's like
right. Exactly. Totally.
Yes. I agree. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like that he's going to be it because it's Matthew Lillard and we love him and he's a horror staple. So why would he take this if he's only in the movie for the first 5 minutes and then he's not going to be coming back around in some capacity, right? Yes. And I thought that the scares were lacking for me. Even
would
the
you
gore.
Say you wanted morror?
I wanted more. I definitely wanted more, especially because I had seen a couple of TikToks, especially with like the quote unquote bite scene of it all that comes from the lore of, the son being the one that got bit, but it was the babysitter in this. And those just kind of didn't land for me. The whole policewoman's character didn't land for me as being a police officer of this murderer, and like, you have such a strong relationship with your father that even though you're like a person of like moral justice, you're just letting your father just kind of run free.
So on that note, Nikisha, something felt so off to me that I even said to Jamie during this, like, I think she's dead. I thought that she was like,
same,
because something was just like, didn't work about the character completely. And then when he sees her outside of the thing, I was like, oh, okay, she's real. Other people are reacting to her. But I remember saying that to Jamie, being like, oh, she's dead. I was like so proud of myself. Meanwhile,
I felt the same way.
Because what was the other movie we watched, Nikisha? Oh, Thanksgiving. Where we felt, no spoilers for Thanksgiving here if you still want to watch it, but like something at the very beginning felt off to Nikisha and I, but we ignored it. So while watching this one, I thought to myself, oh, you know what? Like, I'm going to keep paying attention to all these details.
Go with your instincts.
No, strike that, reverse it. We watched this before Thanksgiving. So I didn't pay attention to the Thanksgiving thing because it didn't work out in this one.
Oh,
that's what happened. Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, even still, I watched Thanksgiving first. And so my spidey senses were tingling and still wrong. But I absolutely thought the same exact thing, Brian. I was like, she has to be dead or one of the dead children. I don't know. But she just has to not be alive.
Yeah, agreed. Or maybe she was a security guard a couple times ago. Like, I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, just to wrap it up for my biggest gripe for this movie, after sitting and finding some, good old TikToks not about the movie, but just about more of the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's and all of the games, because I didn't know that the games did have to do with the dead children, because I thought that was kind of a lot for this. I think that I would have liked the movie better if it was just about animatronics attacking, and then if you want to make multiple movies because there are multiple games, then you can add in the lore as you go through each movie. And it felt like they were trying to cram all of that into this, and so it felt like a lot for someone who doesn't know the game, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So that's just my biggest gripe about it. I would have liked it to have just been, like Jamie explained the first game. There's no real like lore in the first game. It's just about trying to keep yourself safe. And then you can build and capitalize. Like, I'm sure there are going to be more Five Nights at Freddy's movies, but
Oh,
like I feel like
definitely.
they could have capitalized it on it more if it just started out like how the first game was, and then build the actual backstory through the other movies that come afterwards.
I think this is the highest grossing Blumhouse movie ever.
Stop. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like a very dedicated fan base. And I think there was a I mean, we'll guess what the Rotten Tomato score is, and I don't know what it is, but I did
Yeah.
hear that there was like a big difference between what the critics consensus had been and what the audience score was, because like people who love this love it, and like we're so excited. I mean, there's so few video game adaptations, and then to narrow it down further, there's so few video game adaptations that are actually good. And so
Yeah.
like people are, for lack of a better phrase, chomping at the bit for something that like kind of hits all of the notes of the thing that they love, and like,
Okay.
you know, more or less isn't bad. So I think that like that kind of made it work for, and like people were just so excited, and like there were so many other Easter eggs. Like a lot of the people, a lot of the YouTubers who became famous because this game came out, whether they played it or just talking about the lore and like doing videos about the lore, were featured as like they had small extra parts. They had lines in this movie, which is
Yeah.
mind-blowing to me. Like the guy in the taxi is a YouTuber who did let's plays of this game. That was Corey
okay.
Kenshin. The guy at the waiter
The
at the
waiter.
restaurant, I forget, I heard this on another podcast, because like I don't know everything about the lore, and I didn't watch a lot of YouTube videos about the lore specifically, but the guy, the waiter at the restaurant, apparently his thing that he would say it in his videos, his like catchphrase is like, but that's just a theory. And so not only do they give him a line in the movie, but they give him a line where he says his own catchphrase in the movie. Like they really knew their audience and like what was going to put butts in seats and what was going to like, you know, get people going. Apparently people in like the active theaters were fucking losing their minds over all of the hidden Easter egg things that like were in the movie, that like were for them. They felt like it was for them. And I think that like, you know, that's gonna bring in the bucks. So it doesn't
Great.
surprise me that like this really hit everywhere that it needed to for it to be successful, and like I'm assuming there will be more.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't even imagine they would stop making these movies.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to pull from, honestly. Like even just watching like a 10-minute video of like the lore. And
Did you?
yeah, there's one, or I was in a TikTok that I watched. It was like 10 minutes of the lore, and
Yeah.
just the backstory of like, this is what happens in the first game, this is the second game, but this is like, what is it, William Afton or whatever is the guy's name, and like all of what happens to all of his children and all the things. And yeah, it's just a long list of things where they can choose from, and like all the puppets that are being possessed and what children are possessing what puppets and all this stuff. And like there, I don't even think, because there's like a protection puppet, and that's not even in this movie, or that I saw, you know, in a sense. So yeah, I'm sure that they can do so much with it, but it was just, I don't know. I understand what you mean, Jamie, about feeding your audience. But as someone who is not that audience, you know, that was just, I'm indifferent to it. And it seemed just like a lot that they were trying to cram in, but I understand why. Like you're feeding a specific fan base. So some things are meant for certain people and some things are not. So again, animatronics, fantastic, great, loved like just watching all of that. But as far as like the storyline, it wasn't my favorite. But yeah, that's all my likes and gripes. Anybody else?
I'll go.
Yeah.
So I agree with a lot of the things that you said. I think that as someone who is deeply disturbed by puppets, I was very like terrified of these animatronics that were made out of puppets. And they also, I will again like shout out Blumhouse for their really effective marketing campaign, like during the strike, so they didn't have to use anybody. They just posted videos of the making of this movie, which again, people were like so excited about it coming out that just seeing how they like Jim Henson's creature shop, like making all of these huge puppets that people were wearing, and then like, you know, how they were able to like make like Foxy's the one who's like kind of dilapidated so you can see the metal legs, like all of that stuff, just the work that went into it, like the craftsmanship, that's the make or break it for this movie, in my opinion. If the animatronics were solely CGI, I just don't think that people would have been as satisfied. So the fact that they put so much energy into that and like really got it right, I think really made it like more just more enjoyable. And I wanted to see more of it. Like I was invested in watching more of the animatronics because I knew that they were practical and like just looked so good and made it more disturbing. So like it that like kind of lured me in more. I So like this movie is kind of a disappointment for me. Again, as somebody who loves video games, as someone who loves horror, someone who is deeply terrified of horror video games.
Yes.
Like, I think that they tried to do a lot in this, maybe a little bit too much for me. But really the thing that disappointed me the most is, again, what's the rating on this film? It's PG-13. I just want I just want this movie to be gorier. I want more, but what I really want is I want more gore. I'm anticipating a director's cut where we get more of the gore. And like that's like there's so much hype around this the bite of 83 that's like from the game. And like it's like fucked up when you see it in the game for the first time. And I think everyone, the idea that it was going to be in this, like, again, people were just so excited, and I just like I wanted to see it be disgusting. And it just didn't deliver. Even with it being referenced, I just really wanted more. So that kind of like just disappointed me. Even with like the kind of really intense like killing scene that happens where all of the bad guys that the ant hires to, you know, make a mess of the place. I just really wanted it to be like a gorier, murdery scene.
Yeah.
It would have just made things more satisfying, in my opinion. I think that the ant was too like absurd Disney villain. Like it just didn't. I also was like, okay, she's trying to get custody of her niece because like she's going to get the big bucks from the government for adopting her. I'm sorry, but you do not there is no big bucks with adoption. It's small potatoes. It's chump change. Like it's not nothing, but like also then clearly the motivations are like so obvious that I'm like, no judge is going to give this child to her like in this world. But like that wasn't reality at all. So I was just like, how, like it's very like Cruella de Vil. Like it was just like very silly. And that kind of took me out of it. Also, her really bad attorney who was just like, I shouldn't be here.
Oh, yeah, like, yeah.
Why? Like, is this?
Why?
Is he like just a real schmo that they found on the street and like they put him in this movie?
And he's just like looking around.
He was just like so terrified constantly.
Yes.
Like again, like there was a lot of like extreme performances that I was like, what is this? What is the world that you have built here? Like, I understand that like the world is fake because these children are not really, you know, possessing these animatronics. I'm sorry, if that's shocking to you. But like, I don't know. That felt so over the top compared to how like Josh Hutcherson was playing it, which like he was giving a much more grounded ish performance, in my opinion. So it was like I'm confused by like the extremeness of some of like the bad characters and like the normalness of the protagonists. So that just like there was something that felt off about like the acting overall. I did really like Matthew Lillard's like, you know, just being Matthew Lillard. Although again, I think that in the beginning, it's just like they're just giving a little too much. Like he's like, oh, you want to take this job? Let me tell you everything about it. And I'm like, why the fuck does this guy know any of this information? He's giving too much information. It is so clearly him. When he says a line that's like, oh, the guy just couldn't give it up because he's too sentimental. I was like, stop talking. Like, you're the worst bad guy. Like, shut up. Shut your face. I just like, I just thought that was like a line too far. Like, he should have saved that for his end reveal of like, someone should have asked him like, why would you keep this place? And he's like, I'm sentimental. But at that point, you know, it's him. And then it's like more fucked up. I feel like the earlier on, I'm like, you're giving me too much information. Yeah. And again, it's just like feeding into this like weird bad guy over the top kind of thing. And again, I know that Matthew Lillard has this like really like, you know, animated performance in most of the things that he's in. But this, I felt like we could have toned it down a tiny bit to make the reveal more impactful at the end.
Sure. And that's kind of like, this is a weird thing, but like, that's the brilliance of Barbarian.
Sure.
Yes.
Like the hiring of Bill Skarsgård at the beginning to completely undercut your expectations of what the movie is. I feel like a lot of movies recently we've seen like have done the exact opposite of that, where they hire the horror person to be the villain reveal, which like is nice, but also like, I don't know, kind of undercuts the like fun of the guessing game.
Yeah. Right. I also like this is not me saying that anybody going into these movies are like not thoughtful, intelligent people, but like I'm curious about how much people are thinking about these things. Like we are thinking about it because like we have a horror movie podcast. So we're like, you know, the level of, I think, hyper awareness to these things is heightened. Yeah, so I'm curious if like the general moviegoer who enjoys horror movies is thinking about these things in the same way that we are. It feels very obvious for us, but I think that that's because like we've learned what to look out for. We're thinking about these things going into these movies, and I'm just genuinely curious if other people are also trying to solve these mysteries while watching them, or are aware of like the reputation of some of these actors in other horror things, and so they're like, oh, this guy played this, so like they're probably gonna do, like, I see the connection. So, but I don't really know. I mean, again, like I don't think that the general moviegoer is like not making those connections, or maybe they're just going to have a good time and like they don't fucking care about these things in the ways that like we are talking about them. But it's just, I think it's interesting that like I think some people are super aware of that and other people might not be, and they're just like going in and, you know, watching a movie. But yeah, I think so like the acting for me kind of left something to be desired.
Totally. Maybe
with the exception of Josh Hutcherson, I think like did a pretty solid job. I thought the sister was okay. I thought the sister played a very stereotypical like creepy little girl who befriends ghosts. Like there wasn't anything, you know, too wild about it. It like very much hit, I think, a horror movie trope, and like, you know, nothing more, nothing less. So I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. Your friends that no one else can see, like they're ghosts, like whatever.
Right. Sixth Sense. Got it.
Yeah, it was fine. I wasn't really crazy about the police officer either. Like, I think that her lack of being forthcoming constantly, that hits that trope that bothers the shit out of me, where it's like people who communicate effectively would eliminate all of these issues. And like, I think that most people just like communicate, you know, like they're giving information. The way that she's like going around and not being forthcoming feels like borderline clownish that it's like, why, like, just tell this person these things. Stop saying, like, you've realized what his stakes are. He needs to have a job to continue having custody of his sister. Like, you just saying, like, don't come back here is like the least helpful thing, knowing that there's like real life consequences for him if he doesn't, but you are aware of real life consequences if he does, and you are not sharing it, and that makes you a shitty person. Like,
Exactly.
I can't excuse it. That's not how people would operate. And even with, like, the information that she has that's specific to her and like her relationships, it still just doesn't make sense why she wouldn't just say, like, this is not the place that I understand what you're going through. Like, I can tell you only so much. Like, but like, she can obviously tell him more, and it's just like, it's wild that she doesn't, and that feels unbelievable to me.
I absolutely agree. I mean, it's like, and they don't give. I mean, she's a police officer of all things. Like, sometimes they'll like give an excuse of why people aren't great communicators because of whatever reasons in the movie, But it's like, you put this person as like the person who's supposed to be a really great communicator, and she's like you said, just like weaving all over the place. So it definitely just didn't seem real. I'm like, she's not a real police officer, or like I thought maybe she's faking being a police officer.
Yeah, that was another.
It was such a
option,
weird.
too.
It was so weird the way that she was interacting with him that I was like, is she really a cop? Like, is
right?
Like, it just it was very all over the place and made it really hard to like understand where she was coming from as a character and as a human person. Because even if she, like, I don't know, I also think that somebody who had this information about like their parent would operate in a very different way. But that's an assumption. I don't have a parent that murdered a bunch of children and put their souls in animatronics, but what do I know?
Interesting.
My my last gripe is I was kind of bored by us getting the nightmare scene so many times. I wish that there was a different way for them to like relay some of that information, because I didn't like that they just kept repeating it, and that whole scene takes place in the daytime, which I understand that, like, there are more horror movies that are taking place during the daytime that are effective in like creating a very disturbing atmosphere, and there is something disturbing about something horrifying taking place during the day because you think you're safe. But I think that it just like revisiting that same thing over and over again. It was so bright, watching him trip and fall after children enough times just like took me out of it. I was like, no, I want to be in Freddy Fazbear's. I don't want to be in the woods in the daytime. I want to be in the scary place in the dark with the scary animatronics more. Like, it goes back to like wanting more horror and gore, but I just think that like more than half of this movie took place in his dreams, in the same dream. It wasn't even a different dream, and that was kind of disappointing to me. I know that I complained a lot. This movie, like, I had fun, but there was just a lot of things that like I thought could be better, and I hope that the sequels, which I will probably see, like, are better.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Great. Producer Ryan?
I liked it more than the both of you did. I have no relationship to the video games. But I also agree with both of you. I thought some of the acting was excellent. I thought the overall tone of this movie was weirdly consistent, even though one of my gripes is that the acting is inconsistent. Jamie, saying that his aunt was like Cruella de Vil was perfect, because like her lawyer felt like a combination of like Jasper and Horace, like the sidekicks to Cruella. Like, I definitely agree with all of that. I thought the special effects were awesome, like truly like Oscar worthy good, like amazing. I liked that. Here's the thing. I really liked that it was very light. There was a lot of light, so we can actually see the animatronics. However, one of my gripes was the same as Jamie, which was the flashback dream repetition. It was just over and over again with very few variations in it.
Mm.
And I like that it took place in the daytime, but the juxtaposition between the horror in the daytime and the horror at the nighttime wasn't enough because the dark scenes weren't dark enough. Like there was no contrast. They were just inside with the lights on at night. You know what I mean? So there's that aspect of things. Again, I also really enjoyed Matthew Lillard in this, specifically when he cleaned the knife. Like that was clearly a Scream reference,
Yes,
which
yes,
I
yes, yes.
absolutely appreciated there. I liked the mystery of this movie, even though it was told in a repetitive nature. I kind of liked the mystery. I was very engaged the whole time. It's a little slow on days like 2 and 3, possibly. But like the movie was I was really engaged, especially because I don't care about the game. I don't care about the YouTubers. I was just having a good time watching the movie. Even my gripes, which uh, the lack of horror is 100% my gripe as well. Like I just wanted a little more. And I'm not even talking about like more dark or more. I just need a little bit more gore in those kill scenes, maybe. Um,
Yes.
and it's funny. Who's this movie for? It made so much money, so like everybody. But like, there's also something when something's made for everybody, it's kind of for nobody. But everybody saw it. I wonder how well the sequel will do. If people will be like, you know what, I'm not going to go to the movies for this one. I'm just going to watch it on Peacock because it was released on Peacock and in the movies the same day, and it still made a boatload of money. But I'm wondering if this next time around it'll make less money because more people are like, you know what, the first one was fine. We'll be fine watching it at home because there's not the same like pomp and circumstance around it. So there's that one. But like it's kind of not for like hardcore horror fans because there's not a lot in there. It's not for kids really because like it's pretty scary, but also like maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a really
I
good
think
stepping
you're
stone for
wrong.
kids.
I think you're wrong. I think this is very much geared towards kids because there's something about the Five Nights at Freddy's chain that like as a game chain that really is targeted to young people, to kids. Like I was shocked that my younger nephew who is 10 now, like a few years ago, was watching Five Nights at Freddy's videos on his iPad. And I was like, what? I was like, do you know what you're watching? And he was like, Five Nights at Freddy's. And I was like, that's scary, right? And he like just looked at me and I definitely told on him. I told my cousin, I was like, I'm
like, do
concerned.
you know?
Yeah, I was like, I'm concerned because I know what this is and you don't know what this is. So I'm going to tell you that this is like scary and definitely like violent and not for kids, but like, man, like kids love Five Nights at Freddy's. So like, this is definitely what I would say a gateway horror movie for young people. I don't understand because I'm not, a child, but I don't understand the appeal as a child. I don't know if it's like the lore. I don't know if it's the gameplay and like just the phenomenon that it has. I don't know if it's the animatronics themselves. Like people have favorites. People cosplayed as them. People love these characters. Like truly,
that's great.
So
I have a question. When was the first game released? What year?
Ooh.
Because and Jamie, I think that's also surprising too, because since this is like a Chuck E. Cheese version, it seems like it would appeal more to our generation because we know what that is.
Sure.
Like there's not, at least what I don't think there's nothing like Chuck E. Cheese's I don't even know if they're still in existence in places or if there's anything of the like.
Bankruptcy?
2014.
Okay.
Is when the first game came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's surprising to me that little kids would be interested in that but maybe it's the gameplay, like you said. So
yeah, I don't get it because the whole thing is like, I didn't even mention this, but like in the game when you either run out of power or like you don't close the door in time, like the thing that makes it scary is they jump out at you and like they have like even if you think the animatronics are cute, the way that they jump out at you and the way that they look is terrifying. You're seeing their like horrifying looking, metallic skeletons open up their faces into your. It's a jump scare game. Every time you mess up, it jump scares you, and the animatronics are terrifying looking, and like you see the insides of their mouth, and it's just like mechanics and scary. And then it also like each of them have their own like scream sound, so they're like they're like screaming in your face as they jump scare you with their like endoskeletons like opening up. So like it's just very fascinating to me that like kids love this. There's a lot of people our age and like millennial age, I think, that also love this game because like of what you said of when it came out and like Chuck E. Cheese. Apparently there's another thing called Showbiz Pizza Place that I've never heard of that's like similar.
Oh,
okay. I don't know anything about.
Showbiz
I guess it's
Pizza Place.
It must be in like another area of the US because I don't know about it.
So Five Nights at Freddy's has 10 games in the main series.
Yeah.
There are a ton of spin-offs. But in 2014, Five Nights at Freddy's and Five Nights at Freddy's 2 came out in the same year.
Oh, wow.
2015 had Five Nights at Freddy's 3 and Five Nights at Freddy's 4. 2016 had Five Nights at Freddy's sister location. 2017 was Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Then 2018 was Ultimate Custom Night. 2019 was Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted. 2021 was Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. And this year there was another one, Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2. And there are a ton of spin-off stuff that I won't go through, but that's just the main thing. But my last major gripe of this movie is the convenience of it all. I just had a really hard time believing that like his career counselor was also the person who kidnapped his brother, and the daughter was the cop, and like and that was her dad, and then like all of that was just so wildly convenient that like I just have a hard time believing that like all of a sudden at the end of this movie everything is tied up cleanly and nicely. And I get it's a movie, but like to Nikisha's point, there's so much happening in this movie with like his brother disappearing, the kids being murdered, him happening to get this job, him happening to be at that specific career counselor, his daughter being this thing and keeping secret. It was just all very convenient, and that might work for a video game, but like it definitely felt like way too much for this like hour 45-minute movie. But I had a good time watching this, and I think I mean we watched it at home on Peacock. So like I had a good time sitting on the couch with Jamie and watching it. Like I didn't, I have these gripes, but also like what a fun, delightful time.
Yeah, you got jump scared a few times.
Yeah, there are a couple in there here or there, but like nothing the way that like we talked about earlier. Nothing like the way that like Last Shift jump scared me, or like some of those like Smile jump scares. It's not the same, but like you put enough music underneath the quick cut, and like I'm gonna jump.
Sure. Yes, if it's loud enough.
Yeah,
you'll jump.
Yeah.
Yes. Fantastic. All right. Anyone have anything else to add before we move along?
I don't think so.
Fantastical. Well, let's get into our next section. Brains. Okay, so Jamie, my first question. You're up. My first question is about taking care of your younger siblings, and I just want to know the likelihood of an older sibling taking custody of their younger sibling, as opposed to like in this movie, there is their aunt, or if there was an uncle or a grandmother or a grandfather, like any other older person, like, or does it make sense that Mike would be taking care of his younger sister?
Yeah, it's hard to know because I think that the child welfare system is a fickle bitch.
Ooh,
but my assumption is that it would be slightly more like, I guess we have no idea how old he is.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
my first assumption is that she would formally go to the aunt, but like there's also a world where like he would then file for like emergency custody or guardianship and then kind of get that approved. So like it's hard to know. I think the things that are working against him though is like his lack of consistent gainful employment. The fact that he does have a home is good, and that she's like in school regularly and you know is being cared for. Like it's so wild that the aunt hires this like evil, like not evil, but like the babysitter to like work for her, but like the babysitter's there and showing up and like taking care of her every day. So like again, that also works in his favor, but like the job thing is definitely a huge factor that would put him at risk of not successfully winning the petition for guardianship, in my opinion. I feel like that's a big one.
I mean, based on our movie math earlier, like she's not born at the time of abduction. So and if we're saying he's 12, let's pretend that they're not pregnant. And let's say that like it would take them some time, like a couple of years potentially after they've like searched and like have come to the conclusion that they're not going to find their kid again. So like at the very least, they're probably 15 to 16 years apart. So I don't know if that helps the situation at all. I just wanted to do the movie math because that seems to be a theme in this episode.
Yes. Fantastic. Okay, my next question is, can you talk a little bit about how taking care of your siblings can affect your mental health when you don't have parents around? And then can you also just talk about, would it be the same kind of mental toll if siblings are taking care of each other and their parents are there, but they're just negligent parents, for lack of a better term?
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on like ages, like when an older sibling would start to be responsible for taking care of a younger sibling or siblings. I don't know if we've talked about like parentification on the podcast before, but that's like just the idea of like a young person kind of being thrust into this position of having to take on all this responsibility, but like they're still really a kid, and it forces them to like kind of grow up fast because they either like don't have the support system or like don't have the parent or guardian that's able to like take care. And that can look like so many different things. Like it can look like, a sibling having to adopt a younger sibling. It can look like, parents being negligent and a sibling having to kind of take care of, like making sure that they're fed, making sure they go to school. If they're a baby, like, like cleaning them, like changing their diaper, feeding them, all of that stuff. It can also sometimes what it can look like is like sometimes there are situations where I've seen this like a few times where families that are very large, there's like an expectation that the older siblings help take care of the younger siblings because there's just like big families, and like
that happened with the I'm sorry, that just reminded me of the Duggars. Did you watch the Duggar documentary?
That's what I thought too.
I didn't watch the documentary, but like, it's not that's not a bad example. But it's like, if both parents are there and like they're like both being responsible, there's still only two people compared to like however many other children there are in the household. And on top of that, like if there's constantly like babies needing to be taken care of, like that's just an added layer of responsibility. So like sometimes again there's this expectation that's put on older siblings where it's like, better, like you take this on, whether it's explicit or implicit. And it doesn't always even have to be that there's like a ton of younger children, but again, just like for a variety of reasons where older siblings have to like start working earlier because they have to help contribute to rent and utilities and things like that. Like the financial element of being in this like parentified role. So all that being said, it is, I mean, here's like a TV example of it as well, but for folks who are familiar with the show Shameless, it is about a family that lives in Chicago, and both parents are essentially not around. The father is around more often, but he is dealing with an alcohol problem. And so he's not responsible for the children. So the oldest sibling, played by Emmy Rossum, essentially is the parent for all of her siblings. And they range in age, and they all have, like, you know, it's a TV show, so there's a series of hijinks and whatever. But like I feel like it's a good example of like an older sibling that essentially is responsible for her family, making sure that they all get to school. And like, because of that, how does that then potentially get in the way of like they're still a person, like they still have like wants and goals, but like how much of that has to be put on the back burner because they also have to make sure that like their siblings are alive and well and taken care of.
It's fascinating that you bring up what was called parentification.
Yeah, new term alert for talking horror, parentification.
Wee woo.
Because like once you brought it up and like we talked through it just now, not only is it amazing how much drama is based on that relationship in so much of the TV shows and movies that we watch, but specifically in horror movies. The amount of horror movies that we've seen where the older sibling is like in some way responsible for the younger sibling.
Like, what are some examples?
I was thinking of, I watched a movie called Burning Bright, where she wants to go to college, but like she feels bad because she feels like she needs to stay back for her sibling. There are also a lot of movies where like the parents are in the picture and they feel bad going away because like their kids are left with them. Or Scream 6, she goes away and
college,
she leaves her sister with the the bad parent. Therefore we there's that reverse aspect of it, I guess, too. But there's a ton of that in a ton of movies and TV shows, like you mentioned, Party of Five. Like there's like a ton of that, like older sibling taking care of younger sibling stuff. Even in stuff like where the parents are around and supposed to be good parents, like at least in the context of the show, like Seventh Heaven, a lot of those older kids were taking care of the younger kids, even though the parents were there and supposed to be good, real life aside. Like there's just like it's fascinating. Now that you brought it up, like my mind is just like moving through all of
these things.
Yeah.
And even in real life, like the Duggars, the Shiny Happy People documentary, they literally talk about, the parents are talking about how they have a buddy system for the siblings. And so the siblings essentially...
I watched like when the Duggars were on, like 22 and Counting, 23, whatever. Like I watched that. It was fascinating to me.
They're taking care. They're literally like changing diapers, getting people ready for school, putting them to bed, feeding them. And these girls that were doing this are like 12 years old and taking care of babies. And it's just like, how does that, like you said, Jamie, people, they're still an individual person. So it's like, how is that affecting like what they want? Because everything they want is put on the back burner.
Yeah. This might be a bad example, but Lemony Snicket. I mean, like they are orphans, but there is like a baby that's like the third sibling. So like the older two do have to take care of this baby, which is wild, while they're
Count Olaf or whatever,
kill them or whatever. But anyway, the impact is great, and not great in a good way, like great in the bad way. It's a lot.
Yes.
But yeah, again, it's like, if you might grow resentful of both the guardians, if they're around, that like should be the responsible ones. You also could grow resentful like of your siblings for being responsible for them. And like and then it's like really complicated because like it's hard, you feel guilty for feeling that way towards your siblings, that like they're your siblings and you care about them and you want to take care of them, but like because of them you are also put in this position. So like it just makes for like a really tense inner turmoil type of conflict that like I think is really challenging. I think for some folks, like really this isn't like the only solution, but like for some people, one of the main solutions is like removing themselves from that space. If they like need to disentangle themselves from like a really toxic home environment where they are put in this position, like some folks have to leave home, and like they're like that's like an extreme example, but it's also like a real example when there's just like very concerning dynamics where that's the only way that they're then able to live their lives independently and like be responsible for just themselves. There's other folks where like they don't have that luxury for a variety of reasons. And so like, I mean, I think definitely expanding your support system to the best of your abilities so that it's not feeling like the weight is entirely on you. Because like it is, and like leaning on other resources, because even if you don't have parents available to help, like there are tons of services that, in addition to like child welfare being about removing children from homes that are unsafe, a huge like the other main part of that system is to keep family units together. That's actually the primary function of child welfare, and the secondary function is to remove the kid. So it's prevention and then protection. So the preventative like services would be to like add on whatever other resources could help in terms of like aftercare, like other programs, things like that, financial, like help with housing, all of that stuff. So like there's a ton of resources available to like keep family units together and figure out how to like remove any of the barriers that are getting in the way of this being like successful. So like that's usually the route before they go to remove a child from the home.
Yeah.
Hope, again, despite the whole system being totally fucked.
Right. In a perfect way.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a lot of information and a lot to deal with and process. But jeez, I couldn't even imagine your time like working in that environment, Jamie. Like,
yeah, I literally only lasted like 365 days, and then I was like, "This is not." I mean, I knew before that it was not for me, which is why I ended my time there in a year. But man, just that is a beast of a system that I still think about it every so often, and I still feel very badly because I, in some ways like then contributed to like this cycle of people that the young people who are in the system have to interact with and only build these like very temporary connections with before the new caseworker comes in and all of that. So like it just sucks. It really sucks and makes me deeply sad.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, the last question that I have for you, I thought it would just be fun to Billy or Stu Matthew Lillard's character as a villain in this. So what do you think, Jamie? Is he a Billy or a Stu?
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. It's a scream, baby.
Billy or Stu?
Yeah. This is a great question since he is the Stu.
The number one
He's
Stu.
Stu.
Yeah, he is Stu.
Oh,
however,
also
oh,
I
sorry.
did misspeak before. I meant to say Scream 5 when it was like about her leaving. Scream 6 is when she's actually trying to mother her like while she's in college.
Yes,
Sure.
yes. Absolutely.
Thank you.
But
So sorry.
no, you're fine. So despite Matthew Lillard being Stu Macher, I think that in Five Nights at Freddy's, his character is more of a Billy because I think that he has
Billy.
orchestrated this whole what?
What's that? Is that from that's from an Adam Sandler movie? Oh, Billy, right? Oh no, that's from the Cable Guy. Never mind. Keep moving forward.
Jim Carrey. Oh,
yeah,
well.
never mind.
I've not seen that movie. That movie looks like a horror movie to me. I think
It
that's
is.
why I never saw
Yes.
it.
It's totally a
Yes.
horror movie. It is a horror movie.
Should we cover that as a horror movie?
We might have
Right.
to. That'd
be a fun time.
Yeah. Okay.
Not gonna
I'm putting
lie.
it on the list. At some
Yeah.
point. It's going on the idea list.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that he has like a whole evil master plan, to murder all of these children and then control their souls through like the ongoing work that he's putting into it. I think is very premeditated and very psychopathic. So
Yeah.
he's a Billy to me.
All right. Matthew gets his chance to be Billy. How fun. Excited to see what happens with the rest of the movies, because I'm sure he probably signed at least a 3-picture deal with
I hope he did.
Nights.
Between that and his he has like a is it the whiskey? Is it the bourbon? He has like a Dungeons and Dragons.
I think it's a D&D whiskey.
Yeah, whiskey.
I like it. I like this.
And he's in the new Flanagan movie, isn't he?
I
think he is.
I don't
The
know.
Trouble with Charlie or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
I forget.
yeah.
But yeah.
Nice. Well, he's rolling in it. Coming back with a vengeance.
The Life of Chuck.
The life,
Yeah.
With Charlie. Who's that?
Good luck, Charlie.
Cool.
Yes. Fantastic. Well, that's all that I have for brains. Should we rotten tomatin this?
Let's rotten tomatin this.
Tomatin.
Rotten tomatin.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
All right. What do you think this movie? We're gonna do both. You just guess the critics' consensus first, and then once I reveal that, we'll try and guess the audience score. So the thermometer, the tomato meter, the thermometer. How do they call it?
Tomato
meter. The tomato meter. You say tomato, I say tomato meter.
Got it.
What do you think this has for its score? It's like critic score.
I'm gonna say 52.
Oh, I was gonna say 35.
Nice.
All right. This has a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes. Loaded with Easter eggs, Five Nights at Freddy's may be fun to watch for fans of the game, but most viewers of any other persuasion will find this adaptation muddled and decidedly unscary.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
What do you think the audience score is of this?
I mean, I was gonna. Well, God, the critics was so low.
I'm gonna say 78.
Yeah, I was gonna say 71, but I feel like it's lower than that.
It's not. It's higher. It's an 87%.
Oh.
Yeah.
The audience says, perfectly capturing the lore and the spirit of the source material, Five Nights at Freddy's is a long-awaited treat for fans of the games.
Yeah.
I think it's been a while since we've had that big of a
gap.
Yeah.
I just remember like critics coming out and just really not liking this movie, and I was like, oh, I think that there's going to be a huge discrepancy because like people love their things, people love like they either have nostalgia for it or like just deeply immersed in their adoration for something, and that like I think talks big bucks.
I mean, honestly, listen, I love Mortal Kombat and I loved the movie, you know, like, so I get it.
Totally. Well, speaking of that, what do you think that people have rated this on average on Letterboxd? As a reminder, it's decimal points and out of 5.
4.6.
Oh, I was going to say 3.4.
It's a 2.6.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
There's a lot of critics on Letterboxd as well.
Yeah.
I feel like that can definitely
impact for sure
the score.
Interesting. Cool. Should we move to the 4 S's?
Yes.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horns 4 S's.
4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We're going to rank them 1 through 10, 10 being the most, 1 being the least. Skulls is how you think it handled mental health and human behavior. Scares is how scary was it. And Shakes is how much will this stick with you? Was this a one and done viewing? Jamie, let's start with you.
For Skulls, I gave this a 5. Because I really just felt like there wasn't a ton of peopling, or at least enough not peopling that like it lost half the points. For Scares, I'll give it a 2 because I really don't like puppets.
Sure.
Like really don't like them, and I think like 1 or 2 jump scares got me. I can't really remember, but I was gonna give it a 1, but I was like, no, they're creepy. For Shakes, I'm gonna give this a 5 because I think as someone who knows like the gist of the lore, you know, again, like I'm happy with like a positive reception to a video game adaptation, movie or TV show, because like there's just really interesting stories out there, and I think this is one of them. And while maybe like in some ways I think they could improve upon it, I'm just happy that like there was a lot of intention behind this project, and like that really sticks out to me, and it makes me hopeful for other like really interesting, to me at least, interesting video game like stories that I hope get adapted. Like Fallout's getting adapted, and that looks so fucking good. I'm very excited.
Nice.
What about you, Nikisha?
Yes, thumbs up. Also, speaking of thumbs ups, this is so random, but did you guys know that if you're on FaceTime with somebody and you do a thumbs up, there's like a little thumbs up bubble that comes up? Try it next time.
Really?
Yes.
It like sees you do it. It like knows
if
that
you are
do
FaceTiming someone and you do a thumbs up, or even if you do a heart, it'll like the emoji will pop up on the screen.
Oh, that's so weird.
It's
Jamie
very
and I might
weird,
have
but
to
that just reminded
FaceTime
me of
after
that.
this just to see.
You must try. If you have the new Apple update, whatever, iOS, like it will do it. And I found out in the craziest way because I talk with my hands all the time, and then it like just fucking happened, and I was like, "That's wild."
You're like, ew.
Right. It's like, what's going on? Like thumbs down, thumbs up, and hearts, it'll show up. Anyway.
That's crazy.
That's reminded me because Jamie just put her thumbs up. And I was waiting for the bubble to come, and it didn't happen. Okay. Skulls for me, I'm going to give this a 2, mostly because I just really hated that police woman. And I just thought that she just didn't make sense. Scares, I'm going to give it a 1. And that 1 is for that one bite, the bite. And that was a great chomping noise.
Thank you.
And then Shakes, I'm going to give it a 4 because I'm going to remember the animatronics.
Yeah. I gave it a 5 for Skulls. Points for kind of like him trying, always being aware of like missing kids and stuff like that and dreams and whatnot. But it loses 5 points for the police officer. Scares, I gave it a 1 for the jump scares. Shakes, I gave it a 6. I think the animatronics were enough to like pull this out of 4 territory for me. So that's what I did for this one. And then as a suggestion, you want more Jim Henson, watch Labyrinth or Dark Crystal.
You've already said this, which was so funny, but Last Shift was my suggestion.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Mine went along the lines of like, what is another object that has a soul inside that maybe shouldn't? So I'm going with Child's Play.
Yeah. Great movie. That's the movie that scared me as a child and made me afraid of dolls.
Yeah. That's a scary movie. And dolls are scary.
I've never seen it. I've never seen a single Child's Play movie.
That should be another investment for you guys.
Yeah, we still need to finish Nightmare on Elm Street, the like not great ones, and then I think Child's Play is next. I mean, or continuing with Halloween is another one because I haven't seen 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah,
there's
so much.
Or H2O, or Resurrection. Like I haven't seen anything between that one,
and
Season of the Witch, and and 2018. I haven't seen any of the Rob Zombies, so That's another one to consider.
I haven't seen Rob Zombies either, and I also haven't seen H2O. Is that the one? What rapper is randomly in one of those?
That's Resurrection.
I.E. Okay.
Busta Rhymes is in Resurrection.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Yes. That's what I need to watch.
Yeah, but Child's Play is on the list because people love those movies. Like a lot.
They're
What'd you say?
really good.
I just said Busta Rhymes. Well, LL Cool J is in H2O.
Oh, I'm thinking of that too because that movie poster is in my brain.
Yeah.
For H2O.
Well, it's similar movie posters, I think.
Let's see.
Probably.
One of them, H2O, is it's one of those posters where like it has all of their heads kind of.
Yes, and like the shadow. Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's H2O, and then Resurrection is like a close up on the Halloween mask, and then there's a big knife, and then the reflection of the knife is the little faces.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Tyra
you,
Banks,
thank you.
Sean Patrick Thomas. What? Oh my God, we have to watch this movie.
It's fantastic.
All right.
Put it on the list.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
put him on the list. We'll do the Halloweens next. I think we'll finish Nightmare on Elm Street.
I'll
we'll do
watch
the
4, 5, and
Halloweens.
6 with you. I have a lot of nostalgia for those, and they're dumpy.
Yeah, we'll watch them.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Cool.
Fantastic. All right. I think that wraps up our episode. 5 Nights at Freddy's. Hope you enjoyed. You can follow us on all the social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, at Talk Horror Pod, P-O-D. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
Sure, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, so things like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. But if you listen to us, we would love some reviews. 5 stars, please.
And thank you.
Also, I should say, I guess in the end, we all thought it was fine Nights at Freddy's. It was fine. Instead of 5.
I got it.
Not good. Okay.
I got it. I like
everyone.
it.
No.
Big oof.
It's good, but it represents fine. We all thought it was fine. Yes.
Oh, also, this movie also has something that I hate about certain movies. Like, if the aunt is dead in his house, that's only going to affect and no one's going to believe that an animatronic killed his aunt. It's like at the end of movies where they're like,
Mm-hmm.
I survived that, and the cops show up. He's gonna be the
Arrested.
number one suspect. She was killed in his house. I hate those open endings. Thank God they survived Freddy's, but it's also no, he's gonna go home and have to deal with all this legal trouble.
Yep.
Same
And with
thing
that,
Get Out. Same thing with Ready or Not. Same.
Oh, true.
But anyway,
yes.
Yeah.
With that, we'll cut it off. We'll cut it off there. Thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.